Hello?
Sal.
Hey, sorry about that.
What's going on, man?
It was on my iPad. I thought I could answer it with my iPad. How's it going, Zach?
Dude, we're doing great, man. Fucking, we just got done blasting Christian Woman. Fucking, oh my God, dude, like that. You know what? I haven't listened to that in a little while, and that really took me back, man.
I haven't listened to it myself in a long time.
Yeah, you know what? The drums in that shit are fucking insane, dude. And I know I told you this the last time you were on the show. Man, your fucking drums sound great, though, dude. But, like, when I listen to it, man, that fucking snare, dude, the way it snaps. Fuck,
we
man.
We worked on it for days. It was 2 days of getting drum sounds for that record. And the snare drum was a brass 8-inch deep pearl free floater snare that I had used on all those records back then.
Yeah, you guys always had a good fucking drum sound, man. I mean, the whole band sounded great. You know, those records are just classic, man. Amazing fucking shit, dude.
Those were organic records. You know, those were records that we actually tracked. You know, did scratch tracks, did the bass and drums, and then the guitars would be redone, and then the vocals and keyboards and all that stuff. Those records up until Bloody Kisses were organic records, you know, along with the samples.
Yeah, I could definitely tell a difference when they did October Rust, and I mean there were some good songs on that one too, but there was it was nothing like, I don't know, man, like. For me personally, those first three will always be my favorites, man.
You want to know something funny? October Rust, I will say, has great songs, and a lot of those riffs were actually jammed in a room. When I was in the band, he would sometimes just start playing a riff, and I would just goof along with him, and a lot of those riffs ended up being in some of those songs. The issue was that it was no longer live drums or a live groove, and that's where the sterilization took over, and it was, you know, programmed drums.
Yeah, man. Well, tell us, dude. I know I've seen you. You've been on Facebook, fucking
doing you know,
things, man. You're all over the place, man, on Blabbermouth and all these motherfuckers. They're all like, tell us, man, what the fuck is going on, dude? What happened, man?
This is an ongoing. You want to know something? This has been going on since I left Life of Agony. You know, as usual, you know, I was notified about this, and I go and I look, and you know, it said that, you know, this whole big 30-year reissue, and, you know, drums by Johnny Kelly, and I was just like, well, that's incorrect. What's going on? So I immediately texted Josh, and I immediately texted Johnny, and I was like, what's this all about? And they both acted kind of like they didn't know what was going on, and actually Johnny was like, do you think I have anything to do with this? But then lo and behold, I saw that the person that was in charge of the layout, like the whole artwork thing and the whole like they decided, I guess, I don't know who decides these things. Obviously not Peter, because he's no longer around.
Right.
Alan Robert, bassist of Life of Agony, pretty much did almost all the artwork, like 99% of it, and I guess he was art director and all that good stuff, and he was in charge of it. Now, when you go to that camp's been pretty much consistently interfering and doing everything they can to prevent me from doing anything musical or working with anyone musical. And they basically did everything they could to cancel me, starting with, like, probably one of the most horrendous tweets that the singer of that band could have ever made to their 30-something thousand followers back in 2018, claiming that I was, you know, the homophobe, transphobe, all these crazy accusations. And then I was like, well, I'm now waiting for a parade of people with torches to show up at my residence that I lived in prior to here. because, you know, these days when you make a statement like that, you know, people out there sometimes want to impress people, and I was sleeping with a shotgun right next to my pillow. You know, I just didn't know what to expect. And they immediately, when that tweet went out, again, a fan told me about that. And I have the image capture. I can always send it to you. A fan sent to me, says, Sal, you're not going to believe what's going on. And this person, you know, singer of said band, puts out a tweet about me and just crushes me. And they've been shadow banned, doing everything they can in the industry to, you know, tell people not to work with me. Because all of a sudden, people that worked with me stopped working with me. You know what's interesting is that once I realized he was involved in the artwork, Alan Robert, I was like, well, there you go. That makes perfect sense. He had a hand in making sure he drew and did all the artwork. And they didn't have. I don't think they have imagery, any imagery from the original layout. No one ever called me back about this. Not one person from the band called me up to like straighten it out. I did have like a phone call from, I guess, one of the owners of that Z2 Comics. He calls my number on a Sunday night. First of all, I don't know who this is, and I don't answer numbers I don't know. And he's calling on a Sunday night, which isn't even a business night, and he's like, I'm trying to clear the air, and because the backlash from all the OG Type O fans has been so unreal. I actually have been so humbled by the comments I see on their posts. And the hashtags that are going around, like no Sal, no sale, and there's another one, Zach, there's another one going around called hashtag justice for Sal. Dude,
that's cool, man.
This is funny, but at the same time, it's heartwarming because I didn't expect that kind of outpouring from the fans, and the fans have given him a lot of backlash to the point where they had to take down one of their sponsored advertisements for the reissue. They to eliminate all the 100 negative comments, and then they put up a new one, and there's now like 80 something negative comments again. Like just they're really, people also, I think the balls to charge the kind of money that they were charging. Like I can't believe like somebody, you know. That Repulsion tape, again, that's the demo that I'm playing on, you know, from day one. That's actually the Slow, Deep, and Hard record, just the original mix, really. And, you know, the audacity that they, I don't know, somebody found a few of them and they charged $600 and something, and, you know, they're putting out fucking guitar pedals that sound like, you know, fucking Boss pedals and shit. It's just becoming a little too obvious that you're really trying to monetize things, which is okay. I know everyone needs to make a living, but all I really raged about was my credit. I played on that record. I worked hard. I did all the groundwork in that band. And you know, the funny thing is like, when I was texting back and forth with Josh Silver, you know, he was like, well, but you quit the band. I'm like, quit the band? Irregardless, my performance is being repeated over and over and over, and now you're giving someone else credit as if they sat in a room with Peter and worked on that shit. Are you shitting me? And it got pretty ugly. And that's when I raged, and it was a culmination. Like, I know I had a few close friends of mine say, Sal, that video puts you in a bad light because it doesn't seem professional and things like that. I get it. You know, the world is so filtered.
Which video are you referring to?
This video that, you know, I raged on my Facebook page.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, but then this news site called Lamb Goat goes ahead and fucking copies it, you know, with their camera watching my page.
Yeah.
So they They then re-put it out, and then Metal Sucks took it on, and a few of these news sites took it on, which kind of brought a lot of people out into more defense for me, I guess. But the problem is like, the world's not used to anyone not filtering their emotions, and I was just truly upset. I had it. I was like, look, after the years of Life of Agony puts out a movie called the documentary Sound of Scars movie. They intentionally left me out of it, and they brought in other people that were part of the whether it was crew people or this or that. And here I was, another monumental figure that had a big hand in not only playing River Runs Red, but I learned that material in 3 weeks, executed it, dealt with all the rearrangements and the rewriting of the drums. But then, when I did join that band, I ended up becoming Mr. Tour Manager, Mr. Merchandise Guy, Mr. Advance to Shows, book the hotels, drive them across the country. It just turned into like, I was the oldest one in the band, so it was kind of, I guess I was like the big brother, and I did a lot for that band. So to discount, regardless of whatever disagreement we had at the end when we parted, that's another situation that to disregard my participation and involvement in all that business was completely unfair and disgusting to any OG fan that knows the history. So then to watch this buffoon then go and put his hands into the Typo Negative legacy, because they all knew it was very obvious that still was to date always the biggest record I ever played on, Bloody Kisses. It was the most successful record, right? And it sold the most out of the band's catalog. So for him to get involved in that, and for the band to allow that, and then to intentionally just do all this new cartoon artwork, and it's like the new fans that get into the band now will not know who really played on that record. That was my whole point. And it's just a big to-do. And you got people that tried to snuff it, but all the fans are yelling about it, I actually was blocked for a day from Blabbermouth's Facebook page.
Really?
Because, yeah, man, I guess they were worried about me freaking. I guess people were rambling on their post over there. I didn't, they got in trouble, not in trouble, but they were contacted right away to re-edit the article and change the name to Drums by Sal Abruscato, but that wasn't good enough in my book, because what it was that was an actual press release that went out. So there was other news sites stating the 30-year reissue, all this news about the artwork, and Drums by Johnny Kelly. So I was like, yeah, okay, well, Flabbermouth, fixed it, whoop-de-doo. I don't get, but the actual record itself is a total diss to me. You're discounting a member that actually put the work in and actually played on the record, and that's the problem. It's not about money, Zach. It's just like, I was playing ball all these years, so long as I got my due diligence, my credit, and the world knew that it was the records I did on, and that I was responsible for co-founding that band. Had I not gone to Peter's house and rang his fucking doorbell, and his dad let me in and go downstairs, like I love the audacity of like these new age typo fans that try to question me and say, well, how do you know Peter wouldn't like it? How do you know? How do you know he wouldn't be into this? How do you know? Who are you? Like this, like these stupid. I don't know what age these people are.
You ought to know better than anybody, man.
I'm like, I only know him since '84. Right. Johnny and Kenny didn't know him from a hole in a wall. The only other guy that knew him was Josh, because they lived on the same block and played in a band together before Carnivore called Fallout. That was it. So this is the thing that these guys go around discounting. But I'll tell you right now, fact, that band had a couple of a couple of sandbags that did nothing but whine and cry all the time and needed to work all the time and blah, 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 blah. And you want to know something? Had people been real friends of Peter and looked out for him, maybe he would have been alive today, instead of encouraging this kind of bullshit environment backstage and encouraging this type of behavior of excessive abuse and use of all kinds of sorts of stuff. Maybe he'd be alive right now, you know. I mean, he had other stuff going on that might have taken him young also, but still, you know, that guy started like doing all this wackadoo stuff at the age of 35. He was such a late bloomer, and he was just encouraged by like so-called friends. There's shit, Zach, that I know. I know shit about every dude that's why I've been hushed. That's why I'm silenced all the time. I am like no different than what they're doing to someone politically, you know, but in the music world. I've had DJs flat out refuse to play my last 2 records from A Pale Horse Named Death because of this insane stuff that, you know, people go around saying, well, he's a transphobe, you know, because they labeled me a transphobe, you know, and all this other bullshit. No, I'm just a father of 3 girls. Kiss my ass, all right, with this nonsense. You know, that wasn't the problem. Was the band changed so much that it wasn't what it wasn't what it was anymore, and it really got off track for me. And you know, I don't want to really get into that stuff too deep, but you know, this is a culmination of a lot of bad things done to me. And you know, for someone that has like whatever credibility that I have as a drummer, you'd be surprised how hard it is to get a gig, you know, because I've been labeled these things by various people. And now you have Type O Negative that has jumped on this train, and they went along with it too. And they said, oh, he ain't going to say nothing. He's not going to say nothing if we leave him off the record. And I lost my shit.
So basically what you're saying is the industry is trying to cancel you.
Well, yeah, let's put it this way. You know, when I was when I released the first album after I was out of Life of Agony which was When the World Becomes Undone in 2018, Jose Mangan of Liquid Metal, he's good friends with, you know, the guys in Life of Agony. All of a sudden, like the prior record I released, Lay My Soul to Waste, was like, you know, Devil's Dozen. The first record I had out was doing great. All of a sudden, you know, when I was talking to the radio marketing guy saying, well, why isn't Liquid Metal picking it up? I don't know, dude. He's not responding. I don't know. He's not getting back to me. I don't know. But yet he's playing everybody else's garbage. Because, you know, when a label's paying a radio marketing guy, pretty much all these people are going to at least spin the record a couple of times, right? It's just how it goes, you know. And if it sticks, it sticks. If it don't, it don't. So that was that record, and I was scratching my head like, well, maybe he just didn't fucking like it, and I'll respect that. Well, then I released another record. Same thing happens, right? Same thing happens with Jose Mangan. I released Infernum and Terra on STV Records, Long Branch Records, who's like the only people in the industry that sees past all this shit and still believes in me if I want to continue. And the last record didn't get, and people were requesting it, and people, you know, he didn't play it. But here's the real kicker, Zach. I don't know if you knew, but I worked in a project called Die Humane. Yeah.
With Exodus.
With Rick Hanault?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Guess what? That band, who was completely innocent, started suffering the fatigue of all that stuff because when they hired radio marketing company that I will not name, the owner of that company calls me up and says, dude, you know, I'm going to try like hopefully Jose doesn't know you're in the band.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you right now, if he knows you're in the band, he's not going to play the record.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, well, that sucks. These kids got nothing to do with anything. I mean, they're not part of any of this drama between me and LOA. All I did was play fucking drums on their record. You know, that's all I did. I was pretty much like, it was almost like a hired gun type of thing, except I didn't get paid. You know, I got fucking another. That's why I'm not working with them anymore. So, you know, I felt bad for those guys, and I was just like, well, if you guys are going to get targeted like this, I don't think I could be in this band. I'm only going to take you down like a Led Zeppelin. You know, it's like it seems like no one wants to work with me now. And the same thing happened where I was trying to get a hold of Tommy Victor of Prong because he needed a drummer. I love Prong. I love my favorite, you know, when Ted was in the band, like I toured with them when they did their Cleansing record. And I would have loved to play with Tommy and Prong, but, you know, because that dude was on a tour opening up for LOA in Europe, you know, my calls got unanswered. And I was trying to get through to him through a friend of mine, Jason Bittner, who was actually a temporary guy on the tour in Europe and months ago. So like I've tried to like approach COC who needed a drummer, you know. So I think I have the qualifications to like still remain in the professional life, but unfortunately I can't really continue because, you know, Daddy's got to keep the bread and butter flowing somehow. And I've been battling an uphill battle. It's kind of why it's taken me so long to even muster up wanting to do a record, even though I've been offered an extension on my contract from Long Branch SPV. You know, they've always been supportive, but how do I, you know, there's a lot of this nonsense going on that just isn't letting me get shit done, and it's very frustrating.
Why?
And so that's where we're at. So when you see something like the Type O situation happen, I'm just like, fuck this. You know what? You fuckers, you know, everyone wants to do this to me. I got nothing left to lose. I'm going to go off on people now. Now I'm going to go off on people. And what happens, happens. You know?
Well, let me ask you, man. Like, why are these people calling you a transphobe and all this shit, man? Like, where the fuck did that come from?
It came from because I actually had I had an issue being a father of 3 females. The situation was it all started. My last show with that band was in Irvine, California, on the Knot Fest, and you know, I don't have a problem with, for example, homosexuals. I lived in the Village for about 5 years in the late '90s, literally blocks away from. You know, it was all homosexual, that neighborhood, and never had a problem. But my problem is I have a problem with men who dress like women, who still want to be with women and use the women's restroom. That's where I have a fucking problem. And for some reason, people want to, like, go off on me and call me all this shit because I think it's not right for a man with a penis to dress like a woman, but still go and fuck women and go and use women's restrooms in airports and hotels. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching this shit on tour. I was watching this happen. And then I'm sitting in the catering hall backstage at Knotfest in California, and there's a young minor, what looked like was a minor female, working in the catering area where all these fucking rock star bands are hanging out, eating and making a mess. And this girl's going around, cute girl going around cleaning tables off, and she happened to have leather pants. And when you're sitting with someone that is a guy that has tits, that claims to be a woman but has a dick, and is now oogling saying how they want to fuck this girl that looks like she's 17 or 16, me being the father of 3 girls, I was like, in my head, I was like, enough's enough with this fucking shit. this band is become something that I don't care about. I'm not, and that's what it was. It became a movement. And I'm not part of I don't want to be part of the movement. It doesn't mean I don't like anybody or I have ill will towards anybody. It's just that people, it's just that's how I feel. And I have respect for humanity. I have respect for anyone's choices. But, leave kids out of it. And if you want to dress up like a woman and go with men, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? Like that's okay. That's cool. If you're a dude and you want to go with guys and you want to be a woman, that is perfectly fine in my book. But if you are the other way and it's just some kind of ploy of some kind of game and some kind of freak show thing of, I can't go with that. And anyone that thinks that's okay, all right, good for you. But don't hang me on the cross for my feelings. I keep them to myself. I don't preach. I don't post. So that's what it was. But even more, Zach, I got an even better Achilles heel to the year 2017. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm listening, man.
All right. I'm the father of a catastrophically disabled child. And that year, I had to leave twice in 2017 that was leading up to this demise. I had to leave twice on tour while my wife was in the hospital with my daughter, where she was going through serious surgeries, bilateral osteotomies, which is cutting through the femur on both sides and relocating how the bones go into the hips. And she's also been through 2 corneal transplants in each eye, which come from a deceased donor. So I had to leave twice. I was at the airport with these clowns while my wife was at Presbyterian in Manhattan, and I was very depressed. I felt so guilty. Here I am, schmucko, acting like a kid, going to play some shows in Europe with these clowns that are jumping up and down like they're so happy to go on tour. Good for you. But my wife's all the way in the city by herself with no help at all. And I had another daughter. My wife was pregnant that year also with our 3rd daughter while doing all of this. And these guys were going through midlife crisis. The other 2 guys, Joey and Al, were going, I guess, through midlife crisis. So all my crutches were hanging them down. I was too much of a bore. I had too much serious problems going on in life, and they wanted to, they all of a sudden wanted to be on the road 24/7, and I was like, what are you, nuts? I mean, we're not going to make much money, why don't we just cherry pick and just do what we've been doing for years and do all the other stuff that we do? So it was becoming a situation where they wanted to also go tour a lot, which is what they've been doing, but they work more for less now. And I was going through that year a lot emotionally because I'm telling you, we're a unique family. We're a special needs family, and what my wife's gone through and what I've gone through to try to keep things together with that situation is quite challenging. Would be challenging for any family, really, or couple. So I had that going on too. So when I had to deal with this other monkey business, to be honest with you, Zach, at that point, you're already so deflated with all this stuff going on in your life. And then the year prior to that, I had broke my clavicle and I had to cancel a tour. And there was just a lot of stuff going on. And I was still there doing my commitments and doing what I had to do. But then I had to deal with this 3-ring circus where we had to live in terror every day in the Sprinter van because this person was taking such strong hormonal medication that you didn't know if they were going to come in the van from the hotel nice or grinding their teeth that they were going to murder someone. And we were always we were living on eggshells every morning, waiting in the van to leave from the hotel to go to the next gig We were like, oh, wonder what it's going to be like today. Is she going to cry? Is she going to scream? Is she going to laugh? Is she going to what? It was like living in a nut house because these drugs change people so much. And again, I knew this person from so long. It's very hard to someone you know for 20, 30 years, and then now you got to look at them this way and deal with these insane roller coaster rides emotionally. It was just too much. And that was it. And that was fine. And then they just decided to crush me altogether, and just do everything they could after that to prevent me from even just doing my stupid little band and do some shows. And I've had agents turn on me. I've had promoters turn on me. I've had fans turn on me. Everyone just saying, you're a fucking bigot, fucking this, that. I'm like, excuse me? I'm a city kid that went to a multi-diverse school in Brooklyn, New York in the 70s and 80s. You can suck my ass. Like you guys are way too soft for where I came from, and I grew up working in the city. Do not call me racist because I can hang with the best of them and the worst of them, and if you're a piece of shit, I don't care. Like I said in the typo negative video, I'm not racist. I hate everyone, and if you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. It doesn't matter what color you are, and that's it. So that's the deal, Zach. I've had a lot of adversaries behind the scenes because I've always just been a musical threat, and I've always been a threat with a lot of knowledge about things that have happened in the past that I could tell stories. And everyone says I should write a book. I don't know when I'll get around to that, though. But my rants were genuine, and they were true and real, and that's why no one could even call me back. Not one dude. Not Josh, nobody could straighten it out. So that just tells me everything.
I can't believe, though, that they would leave your name off the record, take your picture out of it and everything. Fuck,
That's
man.
totally wrong. That's wrong.
That's crazy, dude.
The original picture on the back of that record, I'm actually in the front, in the middle.
Yeah, I know, I remember.
And I was surprised I was actually surprised they used it because I thought, well, Pete should be in the front. I'm just a fucking drummer, man. But that, regardless of whatever happened, to this day, I'm always super proud of what I accomplished. I mean, I had a lot of balls when I was a kid, and it took a lot of balls just to ring Pete's doorbell. I was friendly with him because I was hanging out with him a lot, because Louis, he lived up the block from me. He was the drummer at Carnivore. He was also giving me drum lessons, and he would take me to rehearsals. And they were rehearsing when Keith Alexander was in the band. Before they even was signed for the first record of Carnivore, they were rehearsing in Peter's basement of his parents' house, the very same house he lived in up until the very end that they, pushed him out of it, after his parents died. They were rehearsing, that's how far back I go with that guy. I knew his first wife that nobody even knows about, I know these guys so far back that when these typo knuckleheads say, well, how do you know what Peter wants? Who are you? Are you his representative? No, I rode in a car 5 million times drunk home with the guy with my life in his hands talking about all sorts of shit, I don't even know how we're alive. Every Friday night or Saturday night, we would be in that piece of shit car that he put together. He had a crazy Russian mechanic. He used like Cadillac front control arms to be able to put big tires on that Grand Prix. That crazy tank car that he made. And we would ride home in that thing. You'd sound like it was falling apart. We'd be driving home every weekend from Alphabet City, totally trashed. I mean, all of us. And I don't know. I don't advocate that type of behavior. I think it's really bad. I don't know how we got away with it, but boy, oh boy, we made it home every time. And Pete was driving. And those were the great times. That was the real typo. The real typo was when we hung out in the Lower East Village at all the goth bars and clubs and just got in trouble and caused all sorts of havoc. And then, we'd go after rehearsal and be all pumped up from it was like we did things in such an old school way, you know, back then, and I'm very fond of those memories. They'll never, you know, even at this age, things like moments like that in a band will never be reproduced, because when you're young, there's a carelessness to it all. You know, you're just living on a whim because you're young and you think you're going to be alive forever. And you know, when you're older, you start worrying about dying and breaking bones and breaking hips and forgetting your Geritol and shit. You know. So,
you were cracking me up in one of the videos. You were talking about, you know, that you were like one of the only guys to have the balls to fucking go head to head with Peter about some stuff, man.
I broke my hand once because I punched a wall instead of hitting Peter. You know something? Listen, I had a big mouth. I wasn't innocent. Me and Pete, we would butt heads a lot because I was the only one that didn't. He used to use his size to intimidate people, but I was like this nut job Sicilian that was like raised on like 9th Avenue in Manhattan. And had all around mobsters and stuff in the meat business and shit. And I was just like, I ain't taking your shit, man. I'll fucking hit you right in the knee. I don't care how big you are. You know, and we used to have arguments, and we did argue a lot. And that kind of led a little bit to why we kind of fell apart. But you know what's the most amazing thing in the world, Zach, is that literally the year he passed away was the year we started talking a lot again. And we actually, had a lot of discussions. I was actually I was in the middle of doing this first project idea, which became the first A Pale Horse Named Death record, which also came out in 2010 after his death, and that's why I was able to dedicate it to him inside the record. And we were literally talking about him maybe like doing something on it if it was possible. He was in Pennsylvania, but he was calling me all of a sudden. He had this crazy idea, which I knew wasn't going to work. But he was like, I want to put together another version of Carnivore. I want I'd like for you to play the drums, but we would also play all the Type O material that you played on. And I'm like, well, isn't Johnny going to get mad? Or, aren't people going to get like their panties tied in knots? He's like, why? You recorded those songs, you did them. And I was like, oh, well, he's like, I think we can make a lot of money in Europe. He had a lot of grand.
Oh, man, that would have been fucking badass.
He had a lot of illusions of grandeur, though, because he thought he was worth more than he really was at that point. And so I went talking to, at that time, a couple of agents and finding out. And then when I got the numbers, I was like, Pete, as far as Carnivore is concerned, the numbers aren't there. This idea that you have about tour buses and this and that, I said, the money's not there to make it all happen. I said, you'd have to, really downsize big time. And so we were talking, blah, 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 blah. And then I had to go leave. I remember it was, I had to leave for a weekend or two to do some one-off shows in Europe with Life of Agony. And the last conversation I had before I left, I actually was at my parents'. He called me on my cell phone, and this was 2 weeks before he died. And he was just saying what's up, and I told him I was at my parents', and just some small talk. I said, yeah, I'll talk to you in a few days, bro. We'll figure this out if we can do something. Because I was very much interested as well, because he was, hands down, the best musician I ever worked with. He made me a better drummer, too. Just the bounce off we had, me and him, the chemistry that we had in the room, because he would play a riff and boom, the drums would just fall to place, and then everything else would chime in, and then he would tell everyone else what to play. And it was kind of like a lot of times, some of these riffs he'd have in his head, and we would either be, I'll tell you right now, this is where we start. Our first studio was actually in the basement of a Brooklyn building that my dad owned. And we had built this room, and it was, concrete floor, and Pete brought this paint from the Parks Department when he was working for the Parks Department. It was this totally poisonous oil paint that took 5 months to dry, and every time you touched the wall, even months later, you still would get paint on you in the studio. And it was so loud down there because it was concrete basement, and that was the first studio that we were working on, all the Slow, Deep, and Hard Repulsion material, the first demo. But then we were at a studio called Ace London in Brooklyn, and I remember being in that room, and either I would kick a beat or he would just start playing a riff that he had in his mind from his house that he had some words for, and then boom. And there would be like live drums being written right then and there. And a lot of times, though, I would argue with him. That's when we would fight, because he would be asking me to do something that I did not want to do because it'd be totally stiff and boring. And I'd be like, no, I'm doing it this way. And in the end, I'd always win out, because then Josh would be like, it sounds better his way, Pete. You know, it would be one of those kind of things. So I kind of got that on every song. I would win out. But, you know, I had a lot of, you know, the way I met those guys, I'll backtrack a little bit. The way I met Louis Beato and Peter Steele was also through, I had started working when I was 13 at a local blacksmith shop in Brooklyn that made these Latin percussion instruments, you know, all types of bells, go-go bells, cowbells, all this type of stuff. And in fact, people like, Eric Carr, who was a Brooklynite, would come in there. Sheila E. would come in there. Tito Puente, like some Latin celebrities would come in there. They would do like a bunch of gack in the back, and then they would start banging away on congas and bells and drums. And I'd be this kid, 13 years old, like on a shear cutter, cutting metal out. Well, it just so happens that when I worked there, I actually replaced, who worked there before me was Louis and Peter. And the owner of this blacksmith shop, his name was Joe Papodadiego. And he heard like a demo I played on with these kids when we were real young. And he was like, Sal. He talked like Catman do, you know, like Wolfman Jack. And he was like, listen here, man. You're not good enough, man. You got to get lessons, man. You got to get lessons. I'm going to turn you on to this cat. His name's Louis. He lives right over here. I'm going to give you his phone number. You call him up. You tell him that Papo sent you and that you want to take drum lessons from him, and he'll set you right. And Louis was young. You know, these guys were 9 years older than me. Peter and Louis Beato were both 9 years older than me. Hence why I was the rebellious kid in Type O, with Peter always wanting to fight and everyone else was walking away, right? So that's how, and I called, Louis just happened to live actually an avenue away from me on the same street. And I made that phone call. I started taking lessons, and then boom, and then I got turned on to carnivore through him, and I became such a, I was so mesmerized. Like I idolized them. I really did. I thought they were amazing, and it became such a huge influence in me that between all these flavors, I was getting a little bit of this, and Louis had it too, this Latin influence we got from this guy working at his shop all the time, listening to this music all day long, this whole syncopated grooves and this kind of beats that would make you want to dance, and I had that kind of influence as well as all the American and UK influences like John Bonham and you know, Bill Ward and all these kind of guys. And that's how I met those two before any of these other guys, you know, and that's how it really started. And I started becoming friends with Peter by just hanging out with them. I was roadieing for them. I was helping them load in and out of the studio that they had. They had a garage on Cortelli Road in Brooklyn. Dude, for a dude that smoked a lot of pot, I remember everything. And that's why I'm so dangerous to all these fucking guys, because they forgot everything. They did all kinds of hard drugs and shit. That's how it was. And it was like me and Pete were the OG. And it was like, I know this, I want keyboards. I know I want to work with Josh again. I was like, oh, you know, and at that time I had a studio also. And I was like, well, I got this friend Kenny. He's in a band, but he seems like a good guitarist. He might be good. And that's how it started. We met in like a park called Marine Park in the summer of 1989, August. I don't remember the exact date, but it was August 1989. It was hot and humid in Brooklyn. And we had like this 5-10 minute meeting, you know, a couple of beers, yada yada, and that was it. And Peter was like, I'll know in 5 minutes if this is going to work or not, you know, typical pessimist or whatever that he was, you know. And that was how it started. And that was, you know, that's what these new fans need to know, because that's the problem is, you know, you get these kids. Like, look, my daughter's 13. She thinks she's a Nirvana know-it-all, when my wife, who was an OG Nirvana fan, you know, taught her the real way of going back knowing about the 7 drummers that were in that band. It wasn't just Dave Grohl.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's the thing. These new kids come along, and it's great that they discover these bands. Like, you know, my daughter, 13, she's listening to Hendrix, you know, Black Sabbath. You know, we just watched the Randy Rhoads documentary the other day because she's playing guitar, and you know, and that's cool. If they can learn the history the right way, then that means the history will continue correctly. But if a 14-year-old newbie typo fan discovers, you know, likes the band and goes, oh, Johnny's the best, he played on every record. I literally had fans argue. I watched fans argue on the Typo Negative page. There was fans literally arguing a couple of angles. One of them was there was no live drums until Dead Again, or Sal obviously was not good enough because they used Drum Machine after him. That was the other one.
What the fuck?
Can you believe that kind of nonsense? Obviously, Sal wasn't good enough because they used the Drum Machine after him. Where do these... Please, what school are they going to, and where did they get their fucking degree? You know,
how does that even make sense, man?
For fuck's sake. Literally, that deserves for fuck's sake. I mean, it just blows my mind, and that's what's killing me is the disinformation and the inaccuracy of. It just blows my mind on how stuff gets really changed over time, thanks to the bullshit of social media. Because look, we all started before all this crap existed. You know, Typo Negative was word of mouth. Life of Agony was word of mouth. We went out there and played and toured, and we were in actual magazines. You know, we were like, you did it. It was all tangible stuff that you touched with your hands. We're like the last generation of guys that actually sold physical records in the 90s. And then it was it. It was over.
Yeah.
And, you know, now the bullshit stories I hear, you know, like the bullshit that this management company was telling Die Humane what they needed to do as a new band to go somewhere was blue. I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing any of that shit. I'm not wearing fucking clown masks. I'm not putting on fucking makeup. I'm not going to wear a fucking robe. I'm not going to look like I'm part of a fucking, you know, some kind of black mask with a hooded fucking, you know, butterfly wings and shit. Just like, I mean, there's all this shit going on now, and I'm just not, I like being the real thing, and I like being me, and it's like nowadays they want, like if you notice, every new band now's got fucking clown makeup on now, and that's cool. That's it's a niche. Doesn't mean it should be the mandatory thing you do to try to get any kind of success or get your music discovered, though. You know.
Wow.
And it's a shame.
They were trying to tell you to do that?
Fuck yeah.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, that's what I said. What the fuck? No. You know, so, you know, without saying names, it's a different ball game. And you know what? I guess I'm a fucking dinosaur, like people say. And that's okay, because I'll still pick up a guitar, I'll still pick up the drumsticks, and I'll still fucking kick ass if I want to. And I'm still always going to play. But I don't know how much in the limelight it'll be. I mean, it's like I was working, you know what, before this shit hit the fan, I just had a meeting like a month, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and I was thinking, contemplating about doing, I've been taking a long time, I like creating, you know, I like making some music. I'd like to have a nice band of guys together and jam, you know, but I haven't even been able to do that because the pandemic really fucked things up too. And still, there's still some kind of recovery, it seems like, happening from that. And now this whole thing where bands are being extorted by the venues because they all want to try to take even more merch money now and take, you know, they want to hit you with the 30% thing like they're a big theater, and they're trying to, you know, everyone's trying to get their asses covered from losing so much money from the pandemic. And if you're in the entertainment business, that was the worst business to be in with this whole pandemic. But I'll tell you what, Zach, I really believe that they had to crush live concerts. Why? Because bands and rock stars are like one of the only most powerful people that can command such a huge audience and actually give them a little bit of influence. And that's always a big threat. Even since the 60s, that was always a big threat to the government, you know? And what better than to come up with a way to just shut down every mom and pop store, every band, every theater, every performance, every Broadway play, anything that reaches people and makes them feel good and takes them out of their manic depression. And you know, they just I swear it's a massive agenda. It really is. And they never talked about how many suicides actually happened during that time, which were a tremendous amount. And everyone got bamboozled. And you know what? A friend of mine told me, as long as these dumb people have their Legoland, their Netflix, and their Facebook and their social media, they don't care what's going on around them. They won't know what's happening. You know, there'll be a flash of light and then they'll be toast. You know, they won't know.
They definitely do try to shut it down, man. Like, I mean, we even had to deal with that. They
dumbed everybody down, dude. Everyone's getting dumbed down. Conditioning is what it is. It's conditioning.
You know,
we've been conditioned. That was a big test. COVID was a big test to see what they could get away with us. And I'm sorry, but that's how I see it.
We had to deal with that even on a smaller level, you know, just with putting on our festivals here in Tennessee, man. You know, a lot of people were trying to shut that down and not let it happen because, you know, like you said.
Why should people be happy?
Yeah, they don't want fucking these people to come out and have something they can be proud of and be happy and feel empowered in some way.
Exactly. It's called empowerment and hope. And faith. That's why they crushed religion, and that's why they crushed entertainment and music and arts and anything that makes people feel good and feel freedom. The biggest fear was Woodstock, 1969. Look at how they assembled so many people. That many people in one place is very powerful. It will even make the government afraid. And the military afraid, you know, like you assemble that many people, and they were real froggy in the 60s and about it. And that's why Nixon, you know, pulled all the shit he did about turning, like, you know, marijuana into a class 1 and he changed everything so they could have more reasons to lock up all these rebels and you know, and when marijuana was like the least violent, least dangerous, natural, God's own medicine on the planet, you know, but yet, what, we got fentanyl pouring in at fucking 90 miles an hour, and I gotta worry about, God forbid, if my daughter's ever gonna get her hands on a fucking Skittles and it's a fentanyl, you know what I mean? That's okay though, right? Nobody's talking about that. But you can't all get together, you know, look, when there's that vocalist that commands a 50,000 capacity audience at a festival, or a 1,000 or even 100 people, and that person can command that audience almost like Jesus, he's a fucking threat. Just like Jesus was a threat and they had to take him down. Anyone that's a threat, Zach, gets taken down. Anyone that speaks the truth gets taken down. If you go along with the narrative and go goo goo gaga, yeah, you're the best, I'm all for it, then you're okay. And that's what makes me fucking laugh. Like this whole, what's going on with this music industry. I don't know why it couldn't just be about music. Why couldn't it I thought music was punk rock and supposed to be about rebellion, not conforming to this narrative that's going on, that if you don't agree with it, you get crushed. You know, from what I understand, there's other musicians out there that someone was telling me the story about Tommy Vext, who is in a similar situation like me, and they crushed his career. He was like the singer in that Bad Wolves band, and they were doing really good, I think, and he lost his career because he didn't run with the Bulls. But yet you got all these other knuckleheads these bobbleheads on Blabbermouth. I won't name bands, but all these guys that are in their 50s and 60s trying to stay relevant, you know, the hypocrisy. It's like, are you kidding me? You're banging girls in the back of your bus, and now you want to act like you fucking care now? Are you fucking kidding me? What? Look, you know who's even funnier? Howard Stern. I was a big Howard Stern fan in the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah.
And that guy, I remember buying his DVD CD set called Butt Bongo. It was when he was still up and coming. It was in the early, like '91, Butt Bongo, whatever. That guy, the womanizing, throwing bologna slices on women's asses, putting on blackface, making fun of all sorts of people of genders and races, and now he's like, became this holier than thou, I'm woker than woke motherfuckers, he says. And I'm like, you're a fucking piece of shit. You know what? You're nothing but a hypocrite. I have more respect for people that just behave themselves. Goodwill to all mankind. Do whatever the fuck you want, but everyone should mind their own business and don't bring that business into my home. Very simple.
Yeah, man. Exactly, man. Do what thou wilt.
Yeah, just don't. And this all does a full circle back to, I was dealing with that for years from one band, and then to see the two merge together, and there's this artwork re-released. 30 years is a pretty big deal. That's a
huge deal.
Yeah, and to be left off of it was why I was very upset, and I'm sure I could have been a little bit more filtered, but I wasn't. I threw everyone under the bus that had anything to do with anything, and that was it. And I said, I'm not here to make friends. I have no friends. These friends have left me alone. I haven't talked to Kenny Hickey in like 7 years, because I dropped him because when my album, When the World Becomes Undone, came out, he called me up, and he, whatever, congratulated me, blah, 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 but then started saying to me how he couldn't get a record deal for his band Silvertune. I was like, oh, okay. I never heard the band. I was like, well, and me being Mr. Nice Guy, I was like, well, I can, introduce you to my A&R guy at SPV, and, I can vouch for you, and, I'm sure they'll work something out with you to at least release it since you already have it done. And sure enough, they did. They put out Long Branch Records, gave him, I guess it was a one-record thing, and they put it out. And then he's on a video interview, and I happened to come across it on my feed, and I think it was the guy from Heavy New York. He asked him, so how did you guys get your deal? And he gave the credit to the guy Frank from Metal Injection. And I was just like, really? Frank from Metal Injection? Oh, okay. I thought it was me that wrote the long, extensive email vouching for you and introducing you to my A&R guy and saying that you have a record ready to go and it's probably a good opportunity for them to work with you. Okay, thanks a lot, buddy. And that was it. I never bothered to even explain it, talk to him again. I just had enough with helping that guy out and using me. He used me all the time. I got him into a lot of jobs. I've made him money many times on the side for things, and got him into the production business, rigging business, all that stuff, working in show business, making money, So, it's one of those neighborhood friends things, your neighborhood friends, and you kind of like, that's what you do. You always help your friend out. But you start realizing as you get older, though, it's been a one-way street. And that's how that ended with that.
Has anybody reached out to you since this
No.
to try to make things right and fix this?
No, like I said, I texted back and forth with Josh. He didn't really seem to know or have a resolution for anything. And I texted Johnny, and all he said to me was, well, you don't think I have anything to do with it, do you? He tried to right away clear his ass with that, and I was like, look, dude, the mere fact that you had Alan Robert do your artwork, you guys had to have approved it, and you guys are well aware of that it was done like that. So it's not about who, what, where. It's just the fact that I've been discredited. And he didn't even, he read it. He didn't even respond. He couldn't even respond to that. And then, you know what else I did, Zach? I publicly made a video and challenged him to a drum-off anywhere in the country. Have you seen that video? It's on my page.
Yeah.
I challenged him to a drum-off, which I think would, you know, like, we could donate the money to charity. I think a lot of Typo fans would just show up just to see that. It'd be a battle of the drum-off, you know, just whatever, have a fucking good time, you know, 30 minutes of fucking beating the shit out of the drums, and then everyone have a drink, right, and have a good time. I said it in good spirits because I'm down to do it, but I never, and I even saw fans even tagging him and calling him out on it too, and not a response, not a peep, nothing, not even a laugh or a chuckle saying, get out of here, you know, like nothing.
Wow.
Because they, you know why? Because they know they fucked up, and I'm super pissed, and they know how I get when I'm mad. You would
think that the media would even be behind something like that, because you know that's just more drama.
Revolver got turned against me. Blabbermouth got turned against me. There's the Metal Injection. The other one, Metal Insider. All these people that run these little outlets that are close friends with Alan Robert and the LOA guys and their agent, those are the people that have worked against me. Anyone that doesn't know them or has a connection with them or an influence on them, nobody's that hasn't. But the circle. They've pretty much, like, even tour managers, like, right now, they're using a tour manager that worked for me 2 times. They've gone and, like, hired every single person I've hired over the years, like just to turn them against me. Used to be friends, you know, they took Kenny Silvertune out on tour right away after that incident, and they just did nothing but talk shit about me over and over, saying what a bad person I am. And they went on a tear because I'm the only one on the planet that can really call out their musicianship, which is really not much to write home about. You got a couple of guys that are one-trick ponies in that band, and I used to complain about that, and I used to feel very bored and unchallenged. And that was one of the big things at the end with the fight, that, you know, there was some nasty emails going back and forth. And I was like, you guys don't even know how to fucking play. You know, I was like, your timing is so bad, you know, that I actually make you look good. And it was like one of those kind of fights, you know, and it's just stupid. It's stupid. And you know something? The sad part is that band, you know, I of course I've suffered, you know, not working, with a band like that for a while, and at the same time, that band has changed a lot because they don't sound like the band that they used to be. They sound like a totally different band now, very different. So, hey, I'm all down for letting people live their lives, but when this stuff keeps popping up on me and I keep getting mistreated, I mean, it really sucks being a public figure, and this is why I lay low a lot of times and I disappear, and it takes me a long time to even mention anything about doing music, because I'm like, why am I going to be a glutton for punishment and put myself through this continuous abuse when you got this little scene up in New York, because it's really there. It's up in New York. The problem is up there. All these label media people that are all in cahoots and friends. You know, it's like his wife worked at Warner too, so they have a little bit of pull. You know, they can ask for favors. So, and that's what they did. They knew what they were doing. And when I saw my own when I saw Typo, which I left on good terms, like Josh came up to see me because I had some things that returned to him that I held for him, and he came up to my house in New York before I left, and you know, I thought everything was cool too. You know, every time they did like last year, what they do? Origin came out with a cool little scratch and sniff sticker with the original asshole artwork, which is to me the better album cover. And you know, they always sent me these remakes and reissues. I didn't get paid, but you know, because you know they were fucking giving my money to someone else. That's a whole nother argument. You know, a whole nother discussion for another day, and I have talked to attorneys, and I'm trying to figure things out with that too. But I'm not really that greedy about it. I just really want what's right, and just everyone just needs to leave me alone with this shit. And maybe one day I can feel like I can put a record again without having it get squashed. You know, yeah, it's like one day, it's like 1 minute you got Revolver Sweat in your records, and then the next minute they won't even do like a review. You know, and that's very obvious to me because I was always very cordial with all these media people. I never said nothing to anyone like bad. They just decided to get on team Mina and light their torches and go burn the witch in Salem. That's all it is. It's a freaking witch hunt.
Now, I know you said in one of the videos that you guys really didn't have contracts and stuff like that done when you were young because you were just kids, you know, like, and it was
right.
It was like a brotherly thing, you know, like you didn't even
correct.
think that it mattered.
That was my naivety on my part, but at the same time, you know what? Technically, the physical performance, my physical presence on that record being reissued over and over and over has something to be said for too.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's just crazy, like, because all of us that grew up in that era, all of us that fucking were fans of the band at that time, we all fucking know. We all bought the records. We all looked at the fucking liner notes. We all know who the fuck played on what, you know, like, how can you change that? That's crazy.
It's kind of like no different than how the country's changed before your eyes.
That's fucking wild, man. I mean, I know it happens. Yeah, exactly. I know it happens all the time, but like, fuck, man, like, really?
It happens to a lot of musicians. You know, it happens to, it happens to people. It happens all the time. That's why it's a shitty business. You know, if you think about it. And now, I mean, it was always a dangerous, shitty business, but now, I don't know, like now, these bands, these young bands, there's nothing new I like. I don't even know what the fuck is going on anymore, but these bands, they have it hard. I mean, it's so saturated, and because it is social media, it's even harder to stand out. Everyone's a rock star overnight on social media. You know, before you even have to prove yourself on stage, you just got to look the part, and you're right there. You start a handle on Instagram, and you're an Insta star. You know. What
kind of advice can you give to young musicians out there right now that are starting up? You know, bands that are getting together and whatnot. What can you tell them, man?
Get a good trade job that has job security. Do yourself a favor. You want to be in a band? Learn a good trade to fall back on. Not enough people know how to do trades, and there's a big demand for it. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters. You know, I don't know, honestly, what to say, because, you know what, I have my own daughter who I just got her a new guitar and an orange amp, and she is aspiring. She played cello and violin in school in orchestras, but now she's been playing the guitar for a few years, and but she's super academically, you know, doing great. So, you know, being someone that's been there, done that, and when you give your whole life up to music, you know, like all the fans think like they have this illusion like you made this money or whatever, you're fucking rich and all this shit. And it's just all, a lot of times it's okay, a lot of times it's an illusion. There's a lot of suffering in this kind of lifestyle. There's a lot of ups and downs, and if you get hooked up with the wrong people, so I would advise that, you know, be as dedicated as possible, because it takes 110% dedication at your instrument and your craft. And then I would say learn as much as you can about the legalities of the business. So once you start working with other musicians, if someone is claiming to try to take all the credit for writing a song that you participated in, you will know what to do, and you will know how to stand up for your rights, and know that, you know, how things work when you sign up for maybe ASCAP royalties, or, you know, BMG, or these different kind of royalty organizations, and how things get split. If you can walk into the door kind of knowing a little bit about that stuff, that helps, because if you walk in naive and you're with maybe older people, they'll take advantage, you know, and know that you're not going to, you know how to protect yourself. So I'd say that. Be super dedicated to your instrument. You got to learn how to crawl before you can run. So for the drummers out there, getting on a drum set and wanting to learn how to do blast beats first is a ridiculous, inappropriate idea. You really should learn how to just groove solid at 4/4 and do that for an hour before you stop, you know, and then go from there. You know, you gotta, it's a pyramid. You gotta build the foundation. So being a musician, you have to build a good foundation, and it's an everlasting journey. You know, even at this age, I changed like my stick size a couple of years ago, because, you know, as I was getting older, you know, wrists and stuff change, and I started playing a different type of stick that opened up a lot of different doors when it came to finesse, a little more jazzy type of stuff, or, you know, little nuances that you don't really get to hear in a lot of heavy metal stuff. But I did do that kind of stuff. I'm known for doing ghost notes and shit, but my point being is this is always an everlasting journey that you continue on. You're never going to stop learning, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 80. There's always something new to do, and it is a lifelong dedication. And being a musician isn't just about having a job and getting paid for it. If it's something you love to do as a pastime and it heals you and it's therapy, then by all means play. Just know what reality is and what the reality is of what you're looking to accomplish. But playing an instrument is the most beautiful thing you could be doing. You know, it's so gratifying. You know, and dedication and practice.
Well, one last question for you, man. You know, since it is the 30th anniversary of this record, and it's a great record, man, and it should be remembered, is there something that people probably don't know that happened? Is there something during the recording of Bloody Kisses that you can tell us that people maybe don't know?
Yeah, Peter played guitar solos on the record.
Really?
Really.
He did?
He did.
What?
He played a couple of the solos. There was a couple of solos that he wanted done a certain way, and he took the guitar and did them, because they weren't coming out the way he wanted it to. And it was all the psychedelic stuff, the real Beatles type of stuff. I think Can't Lose You, and the trippy stuff in the latter half of the record.
Did him and Kenny fight about that, or was it?
Yeah, Kenny was fine with it. I don't think Kenny had a choice. Kenny was almost kicked out of the band on the first record.
Really?
And that's what I talked about in my video. That was one of my under the bus moments that people were telling me, how could you throw people under the bus like that? I don't know. Maybe people should know what a good guy I was. Yeah, Peter wanted to kick him out a couple of times during the Slow, Deep, and Hard days, because of his playing was very sloppy. And I defended him. You know, I said, well, we can't do that to the guy. You know, he's trying. And he got better over the years, but he was pretty sloppy in the beginning, and it drove Peter up the wall. And he was at jeopardy. I think Josh, I don't recall his stance, to be honest with you, but I defended him, and I was like, we can't do that, you know, and give him a chance kind of thing. And so he did, and sure enough, he ended up having a nice career out of that. You know, maybe had I not defended him sincerely, maybe it would have been a different story, and it would have been a different guitarist later on. You know, because I know Peter did have his eye on Paul Bento, the dude that was in Carnival with him, and he also did the sitar work on Bloody Kisses.
Yeah.
So, but before all that, he had his eye on that guy too.
What about...
So, there you go. That's stuff you don't know.
What about all the B-sides, man? Because there's some fucking really good stuff on the B-sides, man, like the Black Sabbath cover and Suspended in Dusk. Like that.
Well, the Black Sabbath cover I didn't do. That was actually Johnny Kelly. That was on. That was a last-minute add-on to the reissue when they redid Origin of Feces with a more tamed cover. That record was me on it, but they added that as a bonus song on that on the redesign of it. That Black Sabbath Paranoid, which was they had Johnny, I don't know, play on it. So, but Suspended in Dusk. That song, probably one of the slowest songs I ever played.
It's one of my favorites, man.
And, you know, like there's like the secret thing on there where Peter whispers, "I buried Sal." Just like how the Beatles did, "I buried Paul." I buried Sal.
I never heard that. I'm going to have to listen to it.
It's very low.
Man.
It's very low in the end. Very low. Yeah, they put a lot of those little Easter eggs in there. But yeah, that song, I mean, honestly, at this moment, I don't even remember how it goes, but I just know that it was the slowest. He wanted to go slow. I was like, "You want to go slow? All right, we're going to go slow." And I remember smoking a lot of pot.
It was, man. It was so fucking slow, but it was so heavy because it was so slow, man. You know, like...
Well, slow is heavy. You know, it's harder to play slow than it is to play fast.
That's what I've heard from a lot of fucking drummers, man.
There's a lot of open space to get lost in, and you have to develop how to keep the timing in between the open spaces so your notes are landing still like a clock. So there's more room to go wrong. But yeah, so there was things like that. I mean, look, working on those records with those guys was like the biggest learning experiences for me. It's why I think it helped me develop an ear, and I learned a lot from just sitting around and watching them with the studio production with the engineer Mike Marciano at Systems 2 Studios, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Peter. I did learn a lot from Josh. I was living with Josh in his house. I lived in his house for about 8 months. And when we were working on Bloody Kisses, I was living at his place, and we would do nothing but every night sit there, listen to other records, compare, talk about the approach with the snare head, and we really broke it down. We spent a lot of time on the drum sounds. We spent 2 days tuning, with the miking, trying it, coming back, you know. And I was playing a really big kit with like big toms. I had really big toms, 14, 15, and an 18, and they were big, deep power toms. And it was cool. It was a lot of hard work though, because they were hard to control, but the work paid off. The record sounded great. There was no click track. There was nothing to keep a metronome. It was all my stick clicks and hi-hat in between everything going on. I had a habit of, in those open spaces, I would hit my sticks. Like I was keeping, I would keep time. Even though I'm counting out, I would hit my stick in between the beat. I was doing that in certain spots in LOA to just keep things super perfect and steady. And that was my thing. That was my forte, was that combination of that groovy flavor with the super slow steadiness and big open tom fills and that whole thing that I created by being in that band. That band, Peter, inspired my style too, along with taking lessons from Louis, along with working in a Latino percussion shop for a couple of years and being around all kinds of artists that just all day long, all day long in the shop. It was nuts, you get a headache after a while.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I was hearing all kinds of patterns as a kid, and I was an aspiring drummer. I was 13. I was fucking already playing, and, excuse my French, but, it's a great history. I wouldn't change it, everyone says, oh, he made the biggest mistake of his career. Hindsight's 20/20. At that moment, I was fighting a lot with Pete. He was insisting he didn't want to go on tour. Whether it was a premeditated plan or not, it just was like, I had just done the Life Agony record. Those kids were going to do like 10 months of touring, and I was a lot younger than those guys in Typo, and I was like, I got to make a move. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of Brooklyn. I want to get on the road. I want to do this. This is my dream. And that's really what it was. It was like, this is my dream, and I need to get out there.
Yeah.
And, sure enough, though, whatever, the label, they offered Peter some kind of security that gave him enough courage to leave the job and go on tour. Because I had done 2 tours with Peter, and they were disastrous. Disastrous. We did a tour in Europe, and we did a tour in the United States with, it was us, Biohazard, and The Exploited. And that was probably one of the most insane tours of my life. But yeah, Peter hated it. He wanted to go home every day. He bitched and complained. And then when I made up songs in the back of the van, making fun of him.
What'd you tell him, man?
He got more mad,
What'd you tell him when he was trying to do that shit?
Hey, you want to go home, let's go home to his mother, and things like that. So, he was a mama's boy. He loved his mother very much. He was a good Catholic boy. He really was. He had good morals. He really was raised right, and that's why I was blown away, like, after my time, like, after I was in the band. When he did Playgirl, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And, when he was a lot older, that ended up being one of his greatest regrets, that his mom ended up finding out that...
Oh, no.
Yeah, that he did something like that. And, because he had, like, 5 sisters... 4 or 5 sisters, so of course the sisters told the mother, and they're all older than him. He was the youngest kid in the family. He was like an accident,
I remember he was on one of those
His father was very old.
He was on one of those daytime shows.
Yes, Jerry Springer, Ricky Lake.
They were talking about it.
He got caught up in all that. That was the beginning. Honestly, knowing where he came from, that was the beginning of the end. He was a good soul deep down inside, but he got tainted and caught up with the wrong people doing this Playgirl nonsense. He did a few other things. Then he was on these stupid TV shows for the same bullshit, and this was like sacrilegious coming from a Roman Catholic family. Sacrilegious, blasphemy, and his mother and father were a very religious Catholic. He was raised very Catholic. It went against his morality in the end, and it tormented him in the end. In the end, he regretted it. In the end, late in his life, he regretted doing those decisions. Peter was a great soul, and he was exploited. He was exploited by all these hyenas, these jackals that surrounded him. And his band didn't do anything to protect him, and the road crew was nothing but bad influencers, and nobody did anything to protect him, because he was a big guy, but he was also weak emotionally. He was fragile. And no one knew him unless you knew him for ages. And that's why I say they killed Peter, because this was allowed to spiral out of control. And he got into this kind of nonsense way too late in life, and he already had health problems. And that's it. What do you expect? When he tried to when I was talking to him, he was doing good. He was planning on moving back to Staten Island. He told me that he was they were helping him to get an apartment. And he was 9 months sober. He was sober when he died, but it was too little too late, as they say. So he died of poisoning, septicemia. You know what that is?
Yeah.
He had a hole in his stomach because the ulcers were so bad. And he stayed in his house, I don't know, this place with some lady in Pennsylvania, thinking he had a flu. Well, he was terrible with getting himself checked out. He was terrible with doctors. He didn't go to the doctor. He was freaking poisoning himself the whole time. He thought he had the flu. He died literally as they took him out through the threshold of the apartment he was living in on the gurney. He died on the way before they even got him into the ambulance.
Jesus.
The guy died like a dog. Alone and nobody there. All these bullshit people, all these bullshit vultures that sucked him dry. He was generous. He gave his money away. He told me when I was talking to him, I won't say how much, he was broke. He was broke when I was talking to him 2 weeks before he died. He was broke. He had no money.
Man.
Everybody thinks he's some, big rock star, When you have all these freaking hyenas and these leeches and these jackals all around you, just there while the good times are there and the rider is nice and big backstage with all that liquor and beer. All these freaking scenesters show up with their pockets lined with cocaine, just trying to be cool. Here you go, do a bump. Here you go. That's all it is, man. It's such everyone's trying to be fucking cool backstage. It's a stupid scene. It is. I'll say that now because I'm in my 50s. I lived it. I was I had my time. I was smart though. I didn't do that kind of stuff. On a regular basis or anything like people got caught up in it. But the shit I had many times, it's always there. People offer just to have access to get backstage.
Man.
So that's why I say he was surrounded by hyenas and jackals and vultures, and they all stripped him and picked him to bits. And then his own band criticized him. Oh, he can't do this. He's crazy. He can't do that. He's that. You fucking helped him get to this point. I don't give a shit what you think. You helped him get to this point. And this is the kind of shit that people don't want to get called out on. And there's only one motherfucker on the planet that does that, and that's me. And that's why they don't like me. I've called out every single one of these little fucking clowns at one point or another in time. Whether it be the LOA folks or this situation. It's just bullshit. And I said it back then too. I said, I told them when he passed away, I said, how come you guys didn't look out for him? Why didn't you protect him? They try to play it off like he's stubborn. I said, why did you allow this guy to hang out with him? There was a particular guy that hung out with him that always showed up with the goods, kept him knocked up all the time on that shit. And I was like, if I was in the band, I would have fucking broke the guy's jaw, and I would have told him, if you come back again, I'm going to put a fucking bullet right in your ear. So that's what I would have done. I would have done everything I would, because that you're protecting not only your friend, but you're protecting your business, your entity, your future. You're protecting a lot of things, okay? It's all nice to have party time, but it's a fucking business, and the bands that live party time, and don't understand the business are the ones that eventually deteriorate. they get screwed or something, or things go wrong. And it's a shame. It's a shame, but I still hold people. I inside personally, I think people are somewhat accountable for him reaching to that point. Why did he have an ulcer? Because of the excessive drinking. Why was he excessively drinking? Because he was allowed to. He was pig-headed. He was, they tried. I know they tried doing interventions. They did. They tried. I'll give them that. They tried doing interventions, but it was already just too late in the game. Too late in the game. It was just already it should have been nipped at the bud early. But the band got big, and success they had a high moment with the Bloody Kisses into October Rust. That the toured with Pantera.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about that too. He had a funny side to him too, and one of my favorite videos. Is from the Pantera home videos. There was one moment when they were on tour with him, and they're Dimebag and Pantera, they're all fucking trashing the stage, and Peter comes out there with a fucking push broom, and he's trying to clean up the stage while they're playing. He's like, fucking, come on.
Yeah.
That always cracked me up. I'm
like, doing his
he's doing his job,
he's doing his job. He was very, he really missed it. He missed that. He missed being an average, regular guy, and he was a little bit out of his element being in that rock star thing, and I think that's why he also kind of imploded.
That's what I always took from that moment when I saw that on that video. That's what I always took from that. Like,
he was out of his element.
He was just trying to be in his element, and just.
He's a blue collar guy, man.
Yeah,
He's just a blue collar Brooklyn guy. Friends with all the cops, friends with all the firemen. He had taken, when I went to his house to talk to him about Jam, and I remember I rang the bell. His father answered upstairs. He let me in. I walked in. He said, "Peter, your friend's here." All right, send him down. I go down. He's laying in his bed. He had cut all his hair off. That's why in the early Slow, Deep, and Hard photos, he had short hair. I had long hair, and then I cut mine after a couple at a show at the Ritz. He had just taken the police test to be a New York City cop, and I remember saying, "Hey, man, how you doing? What? You cut your hair?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be a cop." I'm like, "Really?" I was like, "Ah, shit." I was coming over here to see if you wanted to change.
That'd be a scary fucking cop, man. Can you imagine?
Yeah, but he got singled. In Brooklyn, he got singled out a lot of times, too, because he was the biggest guy. A lot of times he would get attacked first in fights and things like that. So he'd get picked on first because he'd be, Brooklyn's a different kind of place compared to the rest of the country. Back then, they would go for the big guy first, So he one time, I remember him showing up at the studio, he had a bloody ear. Because these Cougines, we called them Cougines, they were the disco guys, and they always fought against the rockers. And they were trying to start with him, and a guy threw a bottle that hit him in the ear. It didn't matter how big you were. There was some rough times, rough gangs in that neighborhood where we lived over there, and a lot of mobsters back then too over there. So there was all kinds of shit going on back then in the 80s in Brooklyn, where we lived. So that's the deal, dude. I hope this was informative and fun-filled family fun for all you God-fearing folk out there. Taking your Xanax and your Valium before bed.
Thank you, Sal. Hey, man.
Thanks. Hey, Zach, thank you for coming to me and having the balls to want to have me on your show, too, because there's a lot of folks that just, don't want to, get so it was great. It was I had a good time. Anytime. Thank you for your support too.
Hey man, fuck yeah, dude. You know what? For any of those people out there that are listening, because I know they're gonna fucking listen to this interview, what do you got to say to them, man? The people out there that are trying to fuck with you, man.
Oh, the ones that are messing with me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just I said plenty so far, but really just have a nice life and go fuck yourselves. I'm done. I've had enough. I'm just, I'm going to try to move on. You know, I have to. I can't just dwell in this nonsense. Unfortunately, I don't. You know, I might take a little longer to do anything. I may not do anything musically anymore. I have other business aspirations, and you know, me and the wife always have plans. So, but I'll tell you one thing: the only ones that have ever given me reason to always hang in there and come back and do things is all the fans and all the friends that have always been positive and all the nice folks that have always had nice things to say and come up to the merch booth and talk to me. And that is really what's always, because you want to know something, the outpouring I've got from the fans, and plus like all the fans that have been like getting stuff from the Pale Horse merch site and supporting, and I'm actually, you know, I said to my wife, I said, you know, the industry may try to cancel me, but I'll tell you, the fans, they're a cult, you know, and they show who they know who's who, and they show it, and they show the love, and they're the only reason why I would ever consider to keep doing it. It's not the industry. That shit I bet a long time ago. It's all the nice people I met along the way, you know, that I took 5 minutes to talk to, or the hour and a half that, you know, I'm hanging out with you, you know, and it's just good vibrations talking. Like, you're hearing the real Sal this whole time. I just tell it what it is. If it's purple, it's purple. If it's red, it's red. And that's that. I'm not going to bullshit nobody. I don't care who you are. You know, that's just how I roll. I come from a very salt of the earth background, you know, and that's really it. And I can't handle the bullshit. I can't handle Los Angeles. I can't handle the fake stuff. I can't deal with it. I'm a real deal doom guy, you know. I just like to make music.
Well, if you ever want to come play in fucking Tennessee, man, you fucking hit us up, dude. We'll fucking make it happen, man.
I'll come by myself with an accordion. Okay?
There you go.
Go oompa, 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 oompa. All right, Zachy. Stay in touch, my friend. Anytime, man.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later, dude.
We can. Anytime you want to rant, you know, give me a shout.
Thank you, Sal.
Yeah. Happy holidays, by the way, and happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody and yourself, and happy Merry Christmas, and God bless everyone. Have a healthy life, man. Stay out of the drama.
You too, brother.
All right, man. Be well. Bye-bye. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later, man.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
There you have it, folks. Sal from Typo Negative live on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation motherfucking radio. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your fucking windows, put them in your front lawns,